And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this evening. We have a magnificent guest with us tonight, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the great, known through many circles, but I came in contact with you through TikTok as an amazing archaeologist. He's going to give us a breakdown exactly what he does. And he goes by the name of Mr. Charles Szczepanski. First of all, how are you doing, sir?
Great, my friend. Glad to be here with you.
Yes, sir. The honor is mine. On behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come have a conversation with us. The first question that we have for you tonight, sir, is how did you get how did you get started on your journey into having a fascination with history and archaeology?
Well, through my own family history, I was always interested in history because of my ancestors. Luckily, they were important enough people and did good enough things that I had enough character examples that I was interested in that in general and their history as service people, people going to war and things like that. But it really came about when my mother passed away. Sometimes that's a real changing time in your life. And for me, my father punished me deeply for being around my mother, spending so much time with her while she was dying of cancer. For some reason, it bothered him. That's a story for another day. But it was at that time where, at that time, I was beneficiary of my father's estate. I gave that away. When I gave that away, I gave away even the home that I lived in because I gave this away to my sister, my dad's ex-girlfriend, and because they were going to kill me over the money anyway. It didn't matter. So I figured I'd give it up. And when I did that, my sister gave me my own home back to keep it
Mm-hmm.
simple. And so once I got that, I got it ready, got my wife in there, got them all settled in. I went to the shore where I was taught to pray by my great grandfather when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I went back there, to be honest with you, to stand with my feet in the water for whatever reason. They taught me that way. I'm just being raw with you.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what he would do, pull up his pant legs, even in the winter, and walk out there and stand in the water. And I'll be frank with you, I stood in the water and prayed to my creator, to my mother and other ancestors that had moved on, that they could give me something. My father, I gave this away because my father was just, let's say he was a taker for now. He
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't what I would consider a giver. He was a taker. And so I wanted to be away from that. I wanted to for some reason, I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I remember praying to my creator to say, please give me something that serves people more like the other people in my family that I admired. I named a few of them. And when I opened my eyes, I looked over on the coast and I swore I saw my mother sitting in a chair. And then I shut my eyes and opened my eyes again. Difficult to tell the story without being emotional. I apologize. And so I opened my eyes again and she was gone. And I broke down because she had only been gone, a year or so. And so I walked over to that spot, and this is the truth. I went there and had a moment, trying to be in communion with my mother alone. And when I turned around to take a step back to shore, I found the first stone, green. And so my sons and I, two of them were with me. We walked up the beach probably another 150 feet. We found a second one that was even more clear, like clear emerald, emerald green. And so took those to the state of Delaware, took those to the University of Delaware, Dr. Billy Glass, William Sandy Shank. These are the people that built the survey. These are old school, well recognized geologists, mineralogists of the region. And they were saying, holy smokes, Charles, where did you find this? Kent County is a coastal plain. So there is no such thing as a rock from Kent County. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
The only rocks you're going to find, no matter what timing it was, whether it was colonial history, recent history, or ancient prehistory, that stone was carried here by someone, and we've never seen anything like that before. You got to figure this out. And so that's really what opened the door right there was that childhood dream, that Treasure Island dream, that explorer dream, like Indiana Jones thing. At the time, I had just lost both my parents. And I don't know, it was something else. And it was tied to my faith. And it was really tied to my heart. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I needed something like this. Had just given away everything I had ever worked for. And I thought I was going to lose my whole family. I didn't know that my wife would understand. And in turn, within a year of that, I'll cut this part off. Within a year of that, I had recovered this one stone. It's a 310-pound ceremonial fetish of a human
Mm.
male, it looks like. And it's 310 pounds of clear gemstone, just like the green one I showed you earlier.
Yes,
It
sir.
is 310 pounds of that, a human face. So within a year now, that stone's priceless. Even as gemstone, it's priceless. But it's a message from the past. It has images all over it. It's 3 feet by 2 feet, over 3 feet by 2 feet. It's in the form of a tablet. It's flat. The human profile is carved into the edge of it. It's emerald green. And within 5 years, well, within 1 year of giving away $5.5 million estate, I had that stone that I know now. It would be crazy to sell it for something like that because, like we know, in respect to all religions on earth, stones are important. You know, even in Islam, stones are important. The ziggurat is important. These things are important. And so
Yes, sir.
these are messages from the past. These are people reaching out from our ancestry saying, here, this is a tie. Something about this is important. And so to find those kind of things here in North America, and they all have oval eyes. So for
Mm.
those of you that may not be archaeologists, what they would call, because I'm very suspect of the government and their terms, that's what I'm an expert in, what they would call a Native American, they would tell you that their art is round eyes.
Mm. Mm.
And I have over 8,000 kilograms of artifacts, and 35 to 38% of them have eyes on them. And we don't have a single round eye.
Mm.
So I speak in all these different terms of language in regards to science, but I'm trying to speak in the most simplest terms of what archaeologists use, because that's one thing we can talk about whenever you want is about Thomas Jefferson. We can do that another time or day.
Yes.
That there's the father of archaeology. On his own website, it tells you that he was corrupt, that he
Mm.
viewed race in all and I shared it in my last live. I'm going live tonight, so I'll probably share that again tonight. But Thomas Jefferson, right from the get-go, the father of archaeology, if you look up on Monticello, his own website, about how he digs up mounds, he would he was just, let's just call it corrupt for now. That's a story for another day. And see, archaeology and all these systems, they were based on taking representations of human races that they saw there, that they thought saw as a threat to the land. This is not complicated science. They started importing slaves, in my opinion, to match what they already saw so they'd have a reason for why. Now, not just by color, but even by profile. Some people like William Penn identify noses and all kinds of different characteristics, not just skin color. But it tells you that these folks were going to bring in people to represent numbers to say, this is how these color people that look like this got here. Thomas Jefferson's right there at the beginning doing that.
Mm.
So
Mm.
hopefully at another point we can get into that. But that's how, when I got into this and the things that I found, this started 10 years ago, by the way, 10 years of research to get to this point that I'm ready to come out now. And yeah, long road, $200,000 in testing out of my own pocket and my business partner's pocket, so
Mm.
that tonight I can sit here with you and I can say that, like that 310-pound face, there's humans of our ancestry. These
Mm.
things are
Mm.
in North America. Anytime that you have the time that we can talk about the original tribes, the Standing Stones people of North America, which tribes were giants, that way you can get into anybody that has biblical ties to these kinds of things. I'm open to any of that. So wherever you'd like to take the conversation, I'm just grateful for the time to help create a bigger platform so that I don't accept a TV show or anything that's going to limit me, so that I can share this openly with everyone. It doesn't belong to one race. It doesn't belong to one people, and for the first time, a private person has a collection this size, and it's the largest in North America held by a private person. I'm ready to donate to universities and churches today. They can have artifacts tested for themselves. And when you see them in person, because soon I'm going to share some exciting pictures and things with you so that you
Yes,
can
sir.
share with your people. That's the main thing, is I really just want to get the pictures of them and let everybody see them, so that they may speak differently to you. They may speak differently to anyone that has a different heritage, and that's why they deserve to be seen by everybody instead of putting in a box at the Smithsonian or somewhere else, where because it contradicts the Bible, because it contradicts race relations. They well, no, we can't let the public see that. And so, regardless of how it impacts any of the races, including my own, you know, it's the truth. And so that's why I believe that people deserve to have that.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Szczepanski, and people are showing you love all around the world. Thank you very much to Sister Naima, Sister Miriam. They both say peace. Thank you, everyone, to our YouTube family, everyone who is watching. I wanted to go. We have so many questions for you and so many different topics. This is incredible history. We thank you, sir. I wanted to go back to your grandparents and teaching you, first of all, your parents' names. May we have your parents' names?
My mom is, well, because that's where you find my Native American side is through my mom. So my
Okay.
mom is Rebecca Ruth Ford, and I have my 5 generations in front of her. That Evelyn Flood, she is the daughter of Jim Flood, and Jim Flood is the daughter of Anna Nora Rogers.
Mm,
And so that takes you back to my Blackfoot root there. And that's where I have some odd physical characteristics, the pinkies, the certain teeth that you're supposed to have, whether you're Hebrew or not. And we know that part does come through my mom's side. And that's part of my work is proving that modern tribes are still executing pure Hebrew than they ever had in the Middle East or Europe or in Africa. They still
mm,
are today. And I have
mm.
states that back me up on that. And so through my mom, it comes there, and that's my generation. So for the people that need to hear those generations to accept that, because I do look a lot like my mom, green eyes, I'm Rh negative. So I'm really odd. My brother's got dark hair and dark eyes and stuff like that. So the fact that I came out like this with all these genes that are not supposed to pop up, it's there for a reason. Now, my dad, that's my European side. He's Lucian Casimir Szczepanski. And
Mm.
now, yeah, and that's, well, yeah, in fact, you just asked for the parents. So that's my parents' names.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. Well, I wanted to, we have, thank you. I wanted to stay with the praying with your feet in the water. Where did that come from? And did you pass that on to your children?
Well, there's a bunch of things that comes through my mom's side. And yes, my kids all go there. My youngest son, Gabriel, um, he's actually better at this on some days than I am. Because some of these beaches, the artifacts, what's unique about some of them is that they're magnetic. And so there is a way when you really get into a deep state of meditation and prayer. Um, and when I pray, again, I pray with Creator in mind. I see myself as the working end. I don't expect personally my Creator to show up and point at a stone for me. I know here on earth that is my position, that I pray to my Creator in faith, but that in action, my faith exists here on earth. And somehow my youngest son, the laboratory, trying to figure out, because they're scientists, how does Charles walk down the beach and know that a rock's magnetic? I'm trying to figure that out. Well, then they're trying to figure out, is it genetic that my son has it, or did I teach him?
Mm,
Because that part of going to certain places, and that's why this one site, see, this is a site that's sacred to people. And I promise you that it's sacred to melanated people.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
Other people too, but I promise you that there are artifacts. I just moved today. One, anyone would agree, is a Nubian style profile. You can see it.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
Oval eyes. And you need to remind me to send you the images I have of the land glyphs that exist in the canals of that area. And
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like you to share them with your people to
I
see
will.
if they don't see the staff, if they don't see the ibis, if they don't see the eye of Horus. Because now that Mother Earth is taking over and washing away I got the proof that the Army Corps of Engineers pumped sand all over this beach I'm talking about to cover it up. And through the power of the earth, she is cleaning all that out. And you can see these African styles, what we're going to call them, because that's what an archaeologist would call it. They wouldn't call it Hebrew because it has Egyptian type flair, we'll call it. They're going to come right out and say, well, it's African style. And I'm going to hopefully share for you, if you didn't know about it, that there's African style petroglyphs all up and down the Susquehanna River. That
Mm,
is the largest collection of petroglyphs in North America. That's a fact that you've never heard of. It's
mm,
the longest non-navigable river in North America. So in other words, the only one you couldn't sail up, the smartest one to live on. And it
mm.
has, if you look up a place called Walnut Island, for example, along the Susquehanna, tell your followers, look that up, and you're welcome. because then you'll see proof of where archaeologists even call it African style art. So see, these historical things are right under our noses. They're right there for us, but they're in a clique. You know, they're just tapped into certain people. And so with me, because of the way I look, it doesn't understand that when my mother died, I chose to wear a red heart. I
mm,
don't want to
mm,
wear a white heart anymore. But they see my face and they talk to me a different way and they tell me things that they wouldn't tell somebody who has melanation in their skin.
mm.
They say things. I mean, I'm Blackfoot. I went up there to an event and the one guy sitting there telling me, when they park people here, you got to watch because I don't like this term. He called them Indians. I use Native American. He said, because the Indians are lazy. They don't want to walk.
Mm, mm,
And I'm sitting there with my five sons that at the time, five of the six, saying, we came here to volunteer and you're going to degrade us because you see whiter skin.
mm.
And you see, this is just the true nature of how all the Susquehanna up there is. So the information, it's right there. And that's what I'm a specialist in. And that's why I give it out for free. They're history books, right? All of these things you need. And if you look up Walnut Island, that's one where you'll find resource materials online, even pictures of the petroglyphs. And I have a slideshow actually from the people who run the whole Susquehanna project that I would love at some point if we could find a way where we could share a screen
Yes,
and I
sir.
could just flow through that with you and your people. It would blow your mind. You will see Anu. You will see the horned god right there. You will see so many things that are right out of, well, they're actually older than Samaria. They're older than Mesopotamia. So,
Mm.
yeah, at some point we'll get to that. But that's, see, the significance of these areas. That's why when you brought up standing in that water, it wasn't just that they taught me to stand in the water, it's at certain places in Delaware. Okay. And so this one place that I want to remind me, that's what I want to send you the land glyphs from this place.
Yes,
Out
sir.
of all the beaches that I collect, all these different types of stones, right? Different, they use different types, different areas to different people use different stone. The best of everything that they could find, but different types. They enjoyed quality. They were not just stupid cave people. They were articulate. But this site is the site where all the green gemstone comes from. It does not come from any other Native American site in Delaware. So see, that tells us how significant that spot is. Then all of these land glyphs that you can see from Google Earth today, by the way. And
Mm, mm.
actually, at some point, anytime you want to do that, my stuff is so real, it's not pictures. Then I'll point out a coordinate to you on Google Earth, and your people will zoom down and see African images around Air Force tanks, staring them in the face.
Mm,
And next time you come on, we can share with them a 1924 picture that shows us a three-sided pyramid mound that was right where those tanks are now.
mm.
The stones that I found, the Army Corps of Engineer took that mound down, and I found out where they pushed them out into the water. So you see, why did I almost get unlived a few months ago? I don't know. And I know my only hope is to come out here and tell the truth and let everybody see them and get it out. And in the last 90 days since this surgery and this recovery, a reinfection, all these other things, I've built a better team of people, and that's why I'm happy to do this. I've built, got some artifacts in people's hands. And the more people I get to expose it to and let them know about this place, it'll be safe so that you can walk in the water like I did. People, if you just
Mm.
go there any given day, you'll see people that tell you, I don't know why I come out here. I come out here to pray. I come out here because I feel close to my ancestors. So that's what I'm offering is instead of maps that are written by somebody, sometimes we have to follow our hearts. And
Yes,
look, I'm
sir.
just telling you, I don't want to be emotional, but when my mom left, that was one thing. When I gave everything away, I thought I was going to lose my wife. So when my sister gave me my house back and finally got it in order, and I was able to go to that water. Now that's what I'm trying to tell you, the urgency that day. I finally had it where my wife was okay at the house again. I felt safe again. I went to that water for whatever reason that I was taught by the men above me and the women above me. And by the way, that was the women's rules enforced by the men in my family. So
Mm,
all of the things about first fruits, about 12 tabernacles, all that stuff that my mom taught me, the sacrificing, offering, all that stuff, it was protected by the men. It was
mm,
taught to me by the men, taught to me by the women, but it was the men that let me know to not mess it up and don't change it. don't, that your grandma told you that. So don't improvise. Do what she says. And that day I went out there from the bottom of my heart to be close to my mother. For whatever reason, I was taught that. I went out and stood in that water, and obviously I wasn't in the right spot because wherever she showed up in my vision, whatever you want to call that, I don't know if I actually opened my eyes.
Mm,
I just know when I reopened them, she was gone. And I went
mm,
and stood on that spot. And I got those two artifacts. They're up in my office. I keep them close to me because I just gave away everything I worked for. I didn't have anything else yet. I
mm.
just was raw, wide open, and in a spot. And I went out there in the water and I turned around to come back after saying goodbye to my mother and stepped on the first one, went 100, 150 feet away tops, found the second one. And then from there on out, man, it's been a central point in my life.
Excellent. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. This is powerful information, and people are showing you love all around the world. Thank you, everyone who was
I'm
watching.
grateful. I'm
Thank you,
grateful.
Sister Deborah, for always showing love out of Arizona. I'm glad you were watching. This is right up your alley. Thank you, everyone who was watching. People are sending you peace and positivity. I wanted to ask you,
Appreciate that.
sir. Yes,
Sure.
sir. When you speak of your wife, how important has she been in your life and your children, but primarily your wife will come to the children later, but your wife been with you, staying with you throughout everything that you've been through in life?
That's another core principle that I don't know who to thank for. But if I want to be real, it's okay to just be real instead of being like politically correct. Um, when I was 10 years old, when my father worked in Kennett, we lived in Kennett Square. My father worked at a store. We were business owners. We ran a used appliance business since the 50s. And
Mm,
we went down there to take my dad dinner because he was working late. And when my mother and I walked in the door, he had his secretary on his lap, kissing all over. And seeing that for me, seeing what the condition of my mother was on the way home, and my mother was always my friend, always there for me, always defended me against anybody and everyone. And to see the condition of my mother and what it took for her to get home that day, and I was 10 years old, exactly. Um, I think that's what cemented that I wanted to be the opposite of my dad. And I had other men around me, the great grandfather that taught me all the praying stuff. And he was with his wife his entire life. He was the headmaster of the Freemasons in Millville, Delaware.
mm,
And
mm,
so when he passed away, my great grandmother, because she couldn't take care of herself, went to the Masonic home up there in North Wilmington. And those were those role model images for me. So in other words, that character driven man in my life, the first one, my grandfather on the other side is the second one. But my great grandfather, Pup Flood, that's where my
mm,
Blackfoot comes from. Um, there was the character driven gentleman in my life. There was the guy who stood tall. Everybody loved him. Everybody respected him. He kept his word. And so, yeah, I think it roots with those kind of guys that I saw that's how they did it. And so, in contrast to my dad, my wife, when my son was born, I think a lot of people before that would say I was an a-hole, right? And the day my son was born, my wife had him C-section. And so to just kind of, just in a short form, tell you how important she is. She's laying there cut open, which I'm still in shock by that at the moment. And they hand me my son, pull him out of her and hand him to put her on her belly for a minute, got the cord done, and then hand him to me. And he tell me to take him over and put him in this warmer and his head towards me because you got to put medicine in his eyes. And when I put that medicine in his eyes and his eyes opened up, I fell to my knees because I felt loved. And I think that the first time I felt it like that. I remember looking up to God and saying, I don't deserve this.
mm.
He loves me. And in my opinion, I don't want to mess with anybody's belief system. My creator, I heard come back. This is how I've always loved you. And
Mm.
so I made a decision that day to be a dad. I had 6 sons with my wife, so I've been with her for over 30 years. And, it's her dad's passed on now. And so it's my obligation to take care of my wife. And so, yeah, that's a core principle as well, that going through all of this, making these choices, giving up what everybody else is fighting for to have money. realizing that because it was, in my opinion, corrupt, I thought I might lose my wife. And so now naturally, yeah, that's next to my kids because that's her and I together. She is definitely the most important thing to me on earth. And you'll never see me anywhere on TikTok, anywhere on YouTube. If something happens to my wife, you will see me sitting here alone wearing my wedding ring because
Mm,
that's what these men before me taught me. I can't credit whoever. I just know that it was born in me and somehow imbued into me that that was the way to do it. And I truly believe it is. It really is the easiest way, in my opinion, to get through life. But I don't know how much that matters.
beautiful. Yes, sir. Excellent. Okay, great. And people are bearing witness saying this is beautiful love. Yes, sir. Real love. Excellent. All right. My next question for you, sir, is I want to ask you about, let's go with one of the videos I saw you do on Abraham Lincoln and his grandfather and how it all
George
went.
Washington.
George Washington. Yes, sir.
Well, George Washington is quite notorious. We've all heard of George.
Yes, sir.
And then he has a great grandfather that would be John Washington, is his grandfather, great grandfather. And his great grandfather is famous because he was stationed near Maryland, we'll call it. I think he would be near the Palisades, is what they used to call it back then. So you can look that up. Um, and he was basically what it was is some things had stirred up between some Native American tribes. And what often went on is not only by taking land in different ways and renaming it in different ways and making a tribe that really wasn't a tribe. Happened a lot back then. I have a lot of evidence of that. And here you have some trickery where a certain type of Native American went and killed some white folks, some colonial folks, we'll call them.
Mm,
And that obviously didn't sit well with the colonials. And so what they did was specifically left weapons and other things of another tribe so that they could implicate them. And if you look
mm,
that up, it happened a lot. They did it to
mm,
each other. And it was because it was fighting over land and money. They're just as greedy as anybody else by then. Some of the tribes, not all of the tribes. But the one particular tribe that John Smith witnesses as giants, well written about in Maryland, in state of Maryland documents, and I can always give you these books. It's free. We've
yes, sir.
petitioned, and Google has them all on Google Books, so that they're free. But the Susquehannocks are specific. That's where the Iroquois descendants come from. But the Susquehannocks, and their real name, by the way, if you're looking into actual history, not government history, there's two different types in North America. There's the Susquehannocks is a name that colonial people or white people made up for them. They have different names, but the oldest name is Mengwe, Mengwe,
Mm,
Mengwe. And so the Mengwe then become what you would call modern day Iroquois. So the Susquehannock are still alive at colonial times when John Smith is running around, and he documents this one gentleman and these five chiefs that came down. They were seen by many Maryland dignitaries, people that, Europeans, we'll call them at the time, because there's Caucasian people here that are not European. That's
mm,
another
mm,
thing I have great evidence of.
mm, mm,
So they were not like them. And so John Smith is a great witness because he tells you this one Susquehannock that he met, his arrows were over 4 foot long. Now, for anybody that's ever done archery, you measure a normal arrow. That's how much broader that human was that he could draw a 4 foot arrow on a
mm,
single
mm,
bow. And so he had 28-inch calves. Okay, so John Smith is pointing out that this is a giant human being. When the five dignitaries met with these chiefs in Maryland, and I can give you that book reference another day. Um, they come right out and say these are the five godliest men that we have ever seen in our entire lives.
mm, mm,
Five godliest men, the tallest, the broadest, never seen anything like them. These are people that traveled the world, telling you they've been to the islands and said we never seen anything like this, folks. So they were still alive. Okay, John Smith met them. Well, George Washington's great grandfather, there's a very important story about five deputy chiefs that were sent down what was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. Okay. They came down, specifically John Washington and it's not a Truman descendant, but the other gentleman that was in command with him, his last name is Truman as well.
mm, mm.
Washington and Truman. Isn't that funny? So they actually go out and they hunt these 5 chiefs down, deputy chiefs down. Now it's documented that they all had the peace bearing paperwork with them that told why they were going, and it was all worked out. They were wearing the Baltimore medal. For those of you that have never heard about it, send this man some love if you've never heard of this stuff, because there's a thing called the Baltimore medal.
Mm,
Okay. Most people I talk to, 99.5%, have never heard of it, even the historians. They were wearing it. They were wearing peace medals that said, hey, in case it gets confusing here, we're here to have a peaceful conversation with you, and here's the paperwork to prove it. John
mm,
Washington, and it says it in this book, cruelly, cruelly put them to death.
mm.
So this is actual. Now, these are some of the last of the, the giant tribes that were running around here. Okay, so these, like they called them godly people. That's what they called them. And that's how 5 of those. Now, this is at the time when the Susquehannock numbers were dwindling, going down because of all this infighting and then fighting with European countries. So when we get into this another day and lead backwards further, you'll see why specific tribes were thinned out first. Their scalps were more expensive. The evidence is right in front of us that proves that this is engineered from the beginning. Which tribes get power, which tribes, I still don't understand how um, you put all these Native Americans on the Trail of Tears and all these other things to go out west, and
Yes, sir.
somehow they're the heroes. But the
Mm,
children of these schools that were forced into these schools that were registered tribal members, supposing none of them, they don't get any love or respect for being East Coast original people. And
mm,
that's
mm.
melanated people that have that original blood and never went out west. But you see, the government tells most people, and they represent it in movies, what a Native American looks like for a reason, because it gives them the real estate. That's simply how it is. That's the simplest I can put it. And there's John Washington. Now, we talk about these political families, you know what I mean, that are connected. Well, isn't that pretty neat that this guy goes out and obviously he's not condemned? He's not
Mm,
considered a bad man for doing this. Otherwise, George Washington would never be able to be in politics.
mm,
It
mm,
would have ruined his reputation. So it just shows you the flavor of, listen, any of these people that are Hebrew, and I'm going to prove that to the world. If they spoke Hebrew or did Hebrew ceremony like William Penn witnessed in 1685 in a letter, and I'm telling you, they went after them first and made sure, because they're the real landowners, folks.
mm, mm.
They picked who they wanted to come in. And I got great documentation to share with you and your people about how during this time they would go in and win a battle in a certain area. A tribe would come in, take that over with force using the European nations, and then sell it to them.
Mm, mm, mm.
That's just how it went. And I have thousands of pages of evidence of that kind of thing. And and when we get into the stones, you see, and I'm looking for the artifacts, this is all the research that came in with it as we figured out how old they were. You see, that's what triggered digging into these other things. And then you read about, Thomas Jefferson. You read about George Washington's like I told you about my great grandfather, how
Yes,
he
sir.
influenced me. There you go, right there. John Washington, he cruelly put to death, the politest way I guess I could say it, cruelly unlived, 5 deputy Susquehannock chiefs wearing the Baltimore medal, wearing peace medals, and carrying verification paperwork on them that they were there for a peaceful meeting to settle this dispute over what this other tribe had done.
That's powerful history. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. And people were showing love. Thank you, Brother Omar Kareem, saying keep up the great work. And people were saying thank you, sir. Thank you to Brother Musa, Brother Kente, Sister Hope, Sister Auntie, all of our Brother Daniel E, all of our YouTube family as well. We have a brief 60-second commercial break, and we're coming right back to our esteemed guests. Thank you, everyone who's watching. We are grateful for every like, share, subscription, and anonymous cash app. One moment. If you have any guest suggestions, please put those in the comments, and we're coming right back to our guests. Thank you very much. 1 second. And we are live with the People's Podcast. Street Premiere Media Production. He has a 4K camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need any of that. Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My two books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Wonderful. Please let us know which city you all are watching from. S Enterprise, Barber and Beauty Products, is a plant-based brush wave website. Kosherwave.com, 770-997-6000. This is Brother Jeffrey Searcy Muhammad, Stephanie Lisan Muhammad. They have a wave company, and it's phenomenal. You got to check the brush out. That's 770-997-6000, kosherwave.com. Right back to our esteemed guest, Mr. Charles Szczepanski, and he's given us some great information. Hope everyone is staying locked in. Thank you for everyone who was watching. People are checking in from Dallas, Texas. Thank you very much for Vincent for showing love out of Dallas, Texas, and everyone who is watching around the world. Thank you very much, sir. My next question for you is, I wanted to go right here with the Grand Canyon. Before we get started with the Grand Canyon, because that's something that I'm really interested in as well. How can we follow you? Where can we watch you on your TikTok, sir?
TikTok, it's under Human Origins Revealed. And YouTube, there's a few videos over there. We're going to start building that up a little bit more now.
Okay.
But mainly on TikTok. I'm probably going to go live tonight for a little while. Just catch everybody up. We've been working hard around here on getting ready to video some of the stones, some of the faces. So mainly on Human Origins Revealed on TikTok, and the same thing on YouTube for now.
Yes, sir. All right. Now, something I'm very interested in is the Grand Canyon, and what does it represent? Why is there such a mystique around it? Is there somebody trying to cover something up? What is the spiritual representation? Man, let us know, please.
Well, the Grand Canyon, the reason why I even get into the Grand Canyon, because remember, my mission is a scientific mission.
Yes, sir.
To expose these ancient sites that are being covered up on the East Coast so that we can protect them and share the voice of these artifacts, the pictures and the faces. But once I got actual receipts on how the Smithsonian actually covers up stuff when they write damn permits, I have real receipts on that stuff. So it is not a conspiracy anymore, if you're read enough or that you don't follow Charles because of this, that you see, I have the receipts that specifically Dr. Hay, these people that were in the Grand Canyon, Dr. Hay is involved. He's one of the largest artifact collectors in the history of the world, definitely in the history of North America. His name is spelled Heye. So if you look up Dr. Hay, he did an expedition in 1916 going down to Susquehanna. He came back, went to Congress and said, hey, you need to start a museum. This guy in the end dies and donates his whole collection to it. They go to Congress and say, we need to start this Museum of the American Indian. I don't like that term, but I'm just giving you the actual term.
Yes, sir.
The Museum of the American Indian. And they said, he showed them the artifacts and said, I need $250,000. They gave him $500,000. So that's how bad it contrasted with their version of the Bible, that those people went right in and gave him double the money. Hay bought artifacts from everywhere, from all over the country, all over the world. No one has ever had a collection like him. In the end, he donates it right back to the Smithsonian. And these people were the people, and this is Grand Canyon to correlate these two together. And this stuff, even in Georgia, where I'm at Wohogodo in our farm now, there's so much evidence here of the same thing. So I'm not just going to be doing Grand Canyon. I'm going to tie Georgia and these other areas in the country in to show you that this is an international place, that all root civilization looks like it came from here and spread all over the world and got isolated with its languages and all this other stuff. Because here, when you compare with Georgia, for example, Grand Canyon and the Susquehanna, and you got this big entity involved in all these collectors. And in Georgia, there's so much evidence. You can go into little mom and shops in some of these mountain towns, and they will tell you about the gentleman that the Smithsonian hired to go digging through mounds in Georgia. And he was never an archaeologist. He never went to school. When you're the lead archaeologist, the goal is find the cool stuff, bring it to us. And everybody knows this now. They didn't know it back then, but this is accepted in archaeology. Thomas Jefferson, for example, you can't see any of those artifacts. Where are
Mm.
any of his artifacts? Why are they not part of a collection? That you can't see them. They're gone. Georgia, the same kind of thing. These folks hoard this kind of stuff because it's kind of like a trophy of saying, look, we took this land and now
Yes,
I
sir.
can
Yes, sir.
dig their grandmothers up and take this stuff. And because it's under the name of the Smithsonian, nobody cared. But I'm telling you right now, look it up about the people that the Smithsonian hired just in Georgia to go digging up these mounds. And now they know have a connection to the Maya. They go older than what we call mound builders in North America. Okay. I know a lot about that. And I know a lot about what the government knows about that and what they would go to court over about that. And so these ancient mounds that they know underneath the mounds is where the real history is. They will go in and just dig into the top of one if they didn't want you to believe it was a mound. Yet the Smithsonian was paying people to dig straight through one and bring the coolest stuff to them. The Grand Canyon has significance all over the world. Okay. So Georgia, as I'm pointing out with the Maya blue paint, the source for Maya blue paint, the clay that it comes from, it's
Yes,
on
sir.
my property. The only
Mm.
place that they could have harvested enough of that clay is in Georgia. So it shows you that the Mississippian culture was definitely here. They shut down a major part of the Chattahoochee National Forest. And if you look up Chattahoochee, Chattahoochee is Mayan.
Mm.
Chattahoochee is Mayan. Yet Chattahoochee, if you just say it the way the colonial folks say it, okay, then it doesn't mean anything. But if you look that up, they have blocked off a part. I can drive you right to it, where you're not allowed to go into that part of the forest. They say it's because they don't want anybody to damage the area. But as soon as somebody came in and took all the pictures and evidence and showed the connections, they shut it down. So in
Mm.
Grand Canyon, if you start to show any connection to any other part of the world, are you getting this yet?
Yes,
That I'm
sir.
telling you, root civilization came from here. Some of it never left. I know this. Other people are guessing. They're using paperwork. They have all this literature that they've looked up that says this proves this. So what? You cannot go to court and win with that. For some reason, the earth chose this to give it to. I think it has something to do with how I felt about my mom and how I take care of my wife and my kids. I think it's just something that simple, like that. It's not all complicated. I don't deserve it. I know that. No, I don't want to get emotional to see how humble I am, but I don't deserve any of this. I don't deserve my wife. I don't deserve these kids. I don't roll like that. I have a lot of pride with other things, but not when it comes to gifts like that. And so when it comes to my perspective on all of this, it's led me to believe because I have mountains of evidence. I have the largest collection of neoliths and paleoliths held by a private person in this country, if not North America. It proves what I'm telling you. And so whenever the Grand Canyon, if you didn't know, is really special to the Chinese. I can
Mm.
give you some other links to give to your people another day. That it's a special place to them. The Grand Canyon is written into Chinese mythology, even not just history, mythology. It's a
Yes, sir.
sacred documented in Chinese history. They knew the currents so well. The Chinese were coming up through the Gulf of Mexico or Baja California, somehow had a way. They knew when the tides were going to be high before we started damming everything up. They knew how the tides would flow, and they knew how to flow into the Grand Canyon, sail up into it
Mm.
from below, and visited it for thousands of years. When you look that up, there'll be a Child of the Sun is very familiar. I think is the Chinese version. Cleopatra's own oldest son was worshipped by the Chinese as the child of light. He was born on December 25th, 40 BC. Cleopatra's oldest son, they say, certain Chinese historians, if you talk to them, made it to North America. As some of the Illinois people point out, they found images of him in caves and stuff like that. But again, this would be a melanated person. This would be a
Mm.
person from the other side of the Bible. Okay.
Yes,
This would
sir.
be, well, and I hope this doesn't scare anybody. And I hope this doesn't scare anybody, but the only born king of the world in our written history, because even everything in Sumeria, Mesopotamia, remember it says they came here. Okay. It just says that. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you my opinions. That's just the
Yes,
way it
sir.
is.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
that would make Cleopatra and her husband ruled the world effectively because they ruled Rome and Egypt, would that not make her oldest son the king of earth? Well, that's how
Mm.
the Chinese saw it. The Chinese saw Alexander Helios as the child of light. They worshiped his birthday on December 25th. Okay. They were coming to the Grand Canyon. They got all this mysterious stuff that they say newspaper articles were written, you know. So can you trust the media or not? They're saying yes. Well, you released all these newspaper articles that said there was Egyptian style. And to be more specific, by the way, because I've studied this, that's another way to inflame people. There's also Tibetan style, you might want to
Mm.
call it. You know what I mean? That kind of style.
Yes, sir.
So there's more than one style of artifact that came out of there. So what does that mean? And why are we not allowed to access parts of it? Because we have the technology now. There's drones heavy enough that can drop a human right on a doorstep if they want to. So there is a safe way to visit these things. And when you read deep into this, you hear the stories about where there were steps and they filled the steps in with mortar so that it would
Mm.
look like a slope. You see, there's something inside of there. And today we're not allowed to see it. And that's what I'm here for. I'm not going to convince everyone. What I'm here on this earth for is to get um, the people to see these stones because you can't see what's in the Grand Canyon.
Mm.
Well, I'm telling you, the land list that you're going to share with your people, they're going to see hints of Egypt. I swear on my mother. Okay. They're going to see that on my immortal soul. I'm telling you the truth. And now that's why the artifacts that I have that demonstrate these oval eyes, even Egyptian style eyes, you see, in made in gemstone, they contradict everything that the Bible they handed people here in America says. It opens the world up to books like Enoch. Well, as you know, in Africa, you can get a full Bible. And so, in other words, it opens up the full Bible. And so, I don't want to mess with anybody's belief system because anything I'm saying, please, from my family, from the people of the five federally recognized Lenape tribes, from my grandmas and aunties that teach me medicine, this is an offering. I really don't want to try to change your belief system in any way. I'm trying to present this truth that ties to all of our belief systems here in America. That all these different races, because China would be considered a yellow person, would they not?
Yes,
That's one
sir.
of the yellow races. Well, I'm telling you that they've been coming here for that long, right?
Mm.
Funny, they were here working on the railroad too. Hmm, kind of suspicious, huh? Well, the Grand Canyon really opens all this up because it's in Chinese history. So it is sacred and special. So inside of these caves that are down inside of there, that's what I don't like. I don't like that we can't go investigate that. I don't like that our government is not forced to show us or let us see, send the right people in there and show us. And that's why till somebody shows me differently, I'm going to believe that based on everything I've read, everything that I know the Smithsonian has done wrong that I can share with you. Why would the Grand Canyon be the only thing that they told the truth about?
Mm. Mm.
Why would that be the one thing that they didn't carry any artifacts away from? Because right where I grew up in Newport, Delaware, there's a story of a white Greek style cross. Now I'm just that comes from a book. I got the book here somewhere. It's right there. White Greek style cross that had hieroglyphic type writing all over it.
Mm.
Now it was in Newport, Delaware. If you didn't know, that's a 30-minute drive from Philadelphia. They put it on a barge to take it right up the river to the museum in Philly. It got lost somewhere in between. I'm just telling you, when we get more into the standing stones, people, like what I'm telling you in Egypt, I got the documents to show you that there was a 14-foot gemstone monolith in the middle in the middle of their village that had their ancient history carved into it.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, and it was from a similar gemstone, blue green gemstone from this area, from this
Yes,
Piedmont,
sir.
and it's gone. So this is the evidence of what they do. And in Egypt, um, we've been taught all these shapes and images our whole lives.
Yes, sir.
And I find it hard to believe that back in the 18 and 19 early 1900s, if somebody went into the Grand Canyon, it was to come out and say that I found Egyptian style stuff, I found Tibetan style artifacts. Why would they make that up?
mm.
Nobody cared at the time. If you ask yourself that, they say it's a conspiracy, but why would they even make that up? Why would they say that? Because Dr. Hay, when you look this up, he's your connection between, he was involved out there in the Grand Canyon. He's involved in the Susquehanna. And we can teach you about how when he went down in 1916 down the Susquehanna River, he did this expedition. He went back and got the money to start the Museum of the American Indian. And during that expedition, he visited a place called Juniata Island, Juneata, Juniata Island. And this is how colonial people butcher things. They call them the Juniata peoples. Their name is Ono Yuta Haga, Onojutta. Folks, please look that up. Ono Yuta, Ono, so Onojutta space Haga. These are the standing stones people of North America. Their name gets changed all the time. But this Juniata Island, he visited that. He collected artifacts. 4 years later, he issued the permit for a dam to destroy the whole thing. And we got the paperwork. The right shoulder of that dam that still stands there today, they used human and large bones to build that. So your evidence is still sitting right there. And so again, Dr. Hay, the cohort and great friend of the Smithsonian, but not an employee. Do you understand? He did what they wanted. He gave everything he ever bought to them, ever collected to them. They're like this, these people.
Mm.
He went right down there as a scientist. I got documentation of where the workers on that dam were carrying off pieces of blue-green gemstone, putting it in their lunch pails, carrying it out in their pockets. They called it bird's eye stone, green translucent gemstone. They were allowing them to carry out artifacts, and the state confirmed that they ground bones from that site into the adjoining farmers' fields. So even the farmers right next to it, at Grand Canyon, it's the newspaper articles and those documentations of those small towns. That's about as far as you can dig in to get any real tangible information. So what I'm trying to suggest is I think similar situations happened out there that happened at Susquehanna. It's just there's no dams. There's not all these civil projects that they left footprints in. So in other words, there's not as much cover up out there. So the good news is proof's probably still there. With a change of leadership or paradigm, maybe we could see what's in there. But I promise you one thing, anything that you think you've heard of Egyptian style things that may be there, that would relate to more modern times of what we call Egypt or Upper Egypt, because I study both Upper and Lower Egypt. That this would suggest that those images were in America, because I have things that the artifact I just held up, the soil data says that artifact was covered in soil in a giant mudslide, okay, that happened between 20,000 BCE and 8,000 BCE. So it says that before 22,000 years ago, these people were living here in North America, because that's when their artifacts got covered up.
Mm.
And they have Egyptian style eyes. I have them here. One's right next to me. Okay. So what we would call African or Egyptian art, I'm offering that's a more modern terminology for the whatever you want to call the most ancient races of the world. And so far, I got everybody beat. When it comes to dates, it helps prove that North America is where root civilization happened. It had the water, it had enough rivers, it had all the things that you want. And I'm here to tell you it's not just paperwork. Soon, and we worked on it today. So in the next day or two, we're going to start to share the faces of these ancient grandmothers and grandfathers. And I believe if you go into the Grand Canyon, I think you're going to find some similar profiles. We're going to show you coins, modern coins, with a profile made a certain style. Then I'm going to show you a 90-pound piece of translucent gemstone that is a pale human profile from at least 20,000 years ago. So whoever imagined when you read even the Old Testament, you read the Quran, and you read about times before that, they talk about how things were.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't it be nice to see what some of the humans and people look like and which animals they worship that are now extinct? Because most of the animals that we represent with the zoomorphic ceremonial fetishes, they say that these people worshiping animals that don't exist anymore. 11 to 30,000 years ago and beyond. So with Grand Canyon, I truly believe it has an ancient history that ties to more than one race. And here I would say the melanated races, the yellow nations, the yellow races have deep old ties to there, even in their mythology, like I said. And so with Grand Canyon, um, I'm glad everybody's waking up to this thing, because I think the only way we learn more is that we find a way that somebody is allowed to go in there that's from the outside that we can trust. Otherwise, I just thought I'd relate to you how the Susquehanna and how corrupt all this is that I have evidence of. And you've got the same people involved out there. So I would err on the side of, I believe what was in the newspapers. I believe that some things found that were there that were Egyptian style or African style. And yeah, it contradicted their paradigm of our country and the Bible at the time. So if you ask me
Mm.
my direct opinion on that, yeah, I would have to say I would have to believe the evidence that they presented before the Smithsonian said it wasn't real, in my own opinion.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And people are bearing witness all around the world. Thank you all for watching and showing love and sending positive energy to our esteemed guests. This is phenomenal. Great talking points. I hope everyone is watching and enjoying themselves as I am. I wanted to ask you, sir, you spoke of the book of Enoch. Could you explain?
Well, in America, just like today, most people read King James Version of the Bible. So giants aren't real. You know, they have David and Goliath, but it doesn't talk about Nephilim and all these other things. 20 years ago, Nephilim was just like a bad word, in the Christian churches and things like that. And so that's the contrast there. That's a part of the Bible. I what I don't like is parenting of the Bible. I believe that people should be able to read the Bible, whatever books they want, any ancient scriptures and texts. I don't think that anybody should be standing in between and saying what we can or cannot handle. And so with Enoch, that's just a great example, because one of the tribes we found was the Danites. So we have found one of the lost tribes of Israel in America. That is a
Mm,
scientific fact.
mm,
We know where the serpent tribe is and was, and there are Hebrew practicing living descendants of the Danites alive today.
mm,
So, um, specifically, just like Enoch, to say it as simply as I can. See, the Danites, once you come to Roman times and once Judaism really becomes what Israel is today, to us in the news anyway, not to me personally either. I'm just saying mainstream.
yes, sir.
That's when Judah and the Roman Catholic Church pop up, and take over these paradigms. And if you didn't notice, just like Enoch, the Danites disappear at that time,
Mm,
because they are the true believers in Jeroboam, which all the idolatry of the Hebrew tribes comes from Jeroboam. If you didn't know, Judah and Jeroboam don't get along,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
but the Danites and Jeroboam, they're tight.
mm. Okay,
Moses said the
okay.
Danites are the strongest of all the best sailors of all the tribes. He tells you all these things. Why would they not be included? Because even on TikTok, when I go on, I see people list the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, where's the Danites?
Mm,
Where's the tribe of Dan? You
mm,
see, that's because there's proof right there that, like Enoch, they're manipulating in general what we're handed. So I think it's parts of our population that are going to seek higher truth. So it's not made for everybody. And maybe it's not made for everybody at a certain point in their life. You grow to these kind of things. And I truly believe that the more people suffer, the more they're kept separate, the more they've felt like they don't belong. They're kind of forming a consciousness of their own now. You see, they're going out and they're seeking instead of accepting,
yes,
because
sir.
they need to find their place. And so with Enoch, it's just crazy that they take away that beautiful story, say it doesn't exist. I was never taught that. And when I grew up, I went to revivals in my hometown in Townsend and all this stuff. I just saw so many different versions. When I lived in South Florida, because my wife is Hebrew, by the way. So when I met her down there, I lived in Boca Raton. Everybody's Hebrew around there,
Mm,
and got to go to synagogue and things like that. And you just don't hear about these things. And with Enoch, there are certain things that I think are going to come to light in history that are going to come to life nowadays. You're going to find that they're real. And with the Danites, the same thing is going to happen too. I'm sorry, but if you're Hebrew, you're supposed to be looking for your Messiah that's coming. And if you're well read and you can shout out loud in your room right now for Charles, then you're looking for which tribe?
Mm.
Looking for the Danites, because the Hebrew Messiah comes from the tribe of Dan.
Okay, okay.
For Christian people, you should be looking for the tribe of Dan as well, because the tribe of Dan has something to do with the Antichrist and the bringing of rapture. So, could it be possible that purposely they're left out? The Danites, the serpent tribe. They're told, be careful, that term, stay away from that. It means wisdom. He brought wisdom. It's on the medical staff. Wajet. Every pharaoh wears wajet on there for protection.
Right.
For some reason, it's something we're supposed to be afraid of. And I think this is why, because you're never going to find rapture and you're never going to find the Hebrew Messiah. You see, I don't want to pick anybody's belief system, but I just want to tell you, this is Abraham's children fighting over who knows our creator better.
Mm.
And that's what's dividing all of us. At some point, our language separated all of us, and the books did too, because if we were on two different islands and we had two different languages, no matter what form of creator we believed in, at one point, I believe it was one thing. We all believed in one creator. If we rowed out to each other and met each other in the middle of the water, they gave us different languages. So we would fight already, because no matter what word I gave for a creator, you would give a different one. And this is by design, because together the human race, you see, rules the earth. Right now, you're being ruled by something else. And I truly believe, and now, if it's okay to drop this, because with Enoch and tying that to something missing like the Danites that they've taken from us, what I wanted to offer is from the ancient grandmothers of North America, because when you study North American, Native American medicine, and you're taught by federal tribes, serious people, okay, that are vested interest in this belief system, they teach you certain things about prophecy. If you hadn't heard, the white buffalo are back.
Mm. Mm.
White buffalo is a sign in ancient North American prophecy. So this comes from our grandmothers.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that when you see this white buffalo, and don't hate him because he's white, because he's a good sign. This white buffalo is a sign that the races that are not the people damaging the earth, because this prophecy says that this entity that is damaging the earth, it gets too unbalanced. The white buffalo show up, and then under one tree, the races unite to take control of all these things again, heal the earth. There's prophecies about the floods that are happening now, the dams that are breaking. All of this stuff happening says that control, while we all fight over the Bible, race, national origin, you see, they're running to the bank every day. And
Mm.
that's what
Mm.
I hope, that's why I'm so grateful that you allowed me to do this, because there's this message that we got to find a way to trust each other again. Something bad taught us to not do that. We got to stop finding those differences, because, and we can't judge each other by the cover. You know, I met a great guy I grew up with, I used to box with, a Jamaican guy, and I can't remember what he used to say. We're really close. And he used to say something that his grandmother taught him about how we judge each other by how we look at each other and see these things, and see the Bible, our color, our religion, our language, all this stuff is meant to separate us. That's why books like Enoch and all the other books, that you don't get if you don't read an African Bible, that are gone, and specifically then the ones that were taken out because Judah takes over. And I told you, Judah and the Danites are exact opposites of the spectrum here. That's the easiest way for me to put it, is they're taken out. Yet, if you read Old Testament, you read these things. The Danites are a very important tribe. This is Samson's tribe, by the way. They are the
Mm.
tribe of judges. So you see, something good and something bad is supposed to come from them. And depending on your belief system, it's a different version. But isn't it weird to these two major religions, Christianity, and we'll call it Judaism, or what is modern Hebrewism, that these people, this is something you're supposed to be looking for. And we go to church every week, or you go to synagogue every week, you're not hearing about it. And so that's why when parts of the Bible are taken away, like Enoch, they're taking away our full perspective. And I think in America, things like Enoch were taken away because there were giant cannibals running around eating people up into the 1700s at least. I got
Mm,
documents on all that. So
mm.
it would be difficult to sell land to these people. They wanted to come over if they knew that there was giants running around. Yet John Smith says that 5,000 people that lived around him, roughly, that were Native American, he saw men wearing hands all the time on their waist. And when
Mm.
you ask them, I got the documentation to share that says they were the hands of warriors that had been vanquished in battle. And that the reason why they wore the hands was because you couldn't eat hands, they were too bitter. So you see
Mm.
cannibalism that's even in the Bible, giants that are in the Bible, these giant islands like Juniata Island that were covered with fruit spontaneously.
Yes, sir.
You see, there's parts of this Bible that might match up to North America. And then some of us might actually want to respect the land instead of building nuclear power plants and dams on it. Like the Cherokee Nation is buried beneath 300 feet of water at the bottom of Lake Kiwi. I've been there.
Mm.
Now, this is a Hebrew practicing nation. Why is it that it's okay that we can't visit this place? Well, it's because they put a nuclear plant there. And I'm going to teach the world about a lot of this. The good news is the sites are safe. It verified things of these other books of the Bible. So as long as we can open our minds and we can all have that higher sense of being and read into these parts of the Bible that are supposedly not made for us, I don't know how to deal with that. I'd like to think that I should be able to read the Bible and digest it for myself. And so, yeah, when Enoch was taken away, there's just many other books, people that know that part better than me, because I have a team that does the research for the Hebrew side and the both and on the Christian side, so that it's not me, it's a group of people.
Mm.
And yeah, so with these books taken away, I think it's damaging to our own. We're like a little lost, those of us that won't open up to these other ideas and search these other books out.
Wonderful. Yes, sir. And people are at so many comments and so many questions. Thank you all very much. People are just bearing witness and sending love and saying thank you. This is powerful. They're going to read the books. They're going to break this down. One more time, sir. May we have your TikTok again?
Human Origins Revealed on TikTok, and that's the same name. Human Origins Revealed is on YouTube. And we don't really do anything yet on Instagram or the others. So as I can get to those, I can put that out there, but that's the main two. And I think soon we're going to add Rumble, because on
Okay.
Rumble, apparently you can have more open conversations. I can use words that like died and things like that, that you can't use on TikTok and stuff. And so I can be more specific. And yeah, the titles of the books and things like that. Now, one thing I wanted to throw out there for you to have for your people is
Yes, sir.
um, I would look up, give me 1 second here because I'm gonna bring that up for you. History, Manners, and Customs of the Indian Nations. Be a great book for anybody who's a serious research person. This is a book that the federal government uses in court. Okay. So History, Manners, and Customs of the Indian Nations. It's written by a gentleman named Heckwelder, Heckwelder. And then another book, you really want to blow your mind? Then look up a book called, and this is free on Google, Lancaster County Indians. You want to read about cannibalism? You want to read about giant people? You want to read about how it was all going? You see, who here, please comment to this gentleman if you've heard of that book.
Mm.
And see, this is what happened. These books are just sitting up there. And unfortunately for them, my research into the artifacts crossed over across these old books, and I actually read them. So instead of just sitting them aside, I actually read them. So that's step two, not just finding the book. I'm asking you to do this. Don't trust me. Read that book, because it's going to open your mind. And one last book for all your people here, History of Dauphin County. Dauphin is spelled very different, Dauphin. History of Dauphin County. That is the capital seat county in Pennsylvania. Okay. Read chapter 1. That's where William Penn's letter is in there that he wrote in 1685 to the traders of London, and said, I found stock of the 10 tribes.
Mm.
I found them here, And he went into a long explanation about their customs and mannerisms and pointed out that their Hebrew was purer than the Hebrew people in Europe and in the Middle East at the time. So this is for free to you. These are books that you can go to Google right now and just go read. Dauphin County, book's awesome. Chapter 1, when you read into it, it just explains to you, it gives you a real colonial perspective on how people like Thomas Jefferson and these other people saw melanated people in general or non-European people in general, because get that straight, these colonial folks, they weren't about just white people. Okay, they were about white European people. Okay, and they're a tight group, still running today, a lot of it, right? And yeah, we'll get more into that another day with Thomas Jefferson and all this stuff, but that lays the perspective of specifically the mindset of where class separation, judging of classes by race and manners and stuff like that. The Heckwelder book is a book that the federal government uses in court regularly, by the way. They use it to beat states, tribes that try to come forward. If you have Moorish descent at all, they try to use that book against you and they win with it. So if you want to be higher educated, okay, any of these other people that you may think you stand on the opposite side of me because of just the color of my skin, I'm offering you a book right there that you need to learn the tools of your adversary, because it is my adversary as well. It's making my choices just like you. And as long as we stay separated, then guess what? It continues to control us, collect all this money, and really it should not have anything to do with this. So that Heckwelder book, that's the Indian customs book. If you read into that book, it'll teach you about the old names, by the way, for the Lenape, the Mengwe. It also gives you the story about the giant tribes that were occupying the mound tribes, the mound builders, you would call them, mud mound people. There's already different terminologies. But the people that lived on the east side of the Mississippi, which is the real name for the Mississippi, the eastern side of that was covered with mounds and fortifications. They teach you about that in the book. The federal government uses it in court. So in other words, instead of just some fantasy novel, there you can have it that if you went to court against the federal government, you gain some perspective on their paradigm. And so please get into that book as much as you can.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. And so many people are sending love. And Sister Dejan, she's from the Native, I think she's a Cherokee tribe. She is also saying this is very interesting to her to learn her ancestry.
I live on former Cherokee land where I'm at right now. Yep.
Powerful. Yes, sir. Well, got to put you on a spot. Is it okay if we come back for a part 2?
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, yes, sir.
I'm grateful. I'm really grateful that you opened this door. I really am grateful for this. Honestly, that's the word. Wanishi, I told you that earlier. That's the East Coast word. I'm so grateful. I really am that we can talk like this. And soon I'm going to have it to where we can share some of these faces. And it's up to you. The scientific reports, whatever they want to hear next. I got those, by the way. Look, so you know the real. Any of the artifacts I have, they all have their own level 5 verification reports, just like any university or museum. So yeah, part 2, and you can decide based on what they want to hear. Whatever your people have questions most about, I'd be honored. I serve this work with these stones and to protect these sites. So I'm grateful for any of your perspective, your prayers, and your time, mainly the time, because you could be with your family, you could be doing anything else, you could be reading your books. And I'm grateful that you've opened your heart and mind to me, because this is my foundation cause now, is to gain voice for these artifacts so that the world can finally see them, things that say what the things in Grand Canyon supposedly said. That the root, these old images actually started here in America. Nominated researchers, you see, that's not just paper research. I have artifacts that are over 20,000 years old that have oval eyes or African eyes. So I would love to be able to do this again and whatever they want to hear about.
Yes, sir. That's my honor. I look forward to uploading this to YouTube tonight. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Thank you again, sir. You've been wonderful. And thank you all for watching. Part 1, part 2 loading. Thank you very much.